Alright, so today, live review of the Cragellachie 14-year-old old malt cask. Single cask bottling here. This is from the Cragellachie distillery, but this is bottled by Hunter Lang and Company. This is a Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey, 50% ABV or 100 proof. It is non-chill filtered and of natural color. This particular bottle was distilled in 2008 and bottled in 2022, and it spent 14 years in a sherry butt of the Oloroso variety. And this is one of 641 bottles, so there's only 641 bottles of this particular whiskey. And again, it's diluted slightly to 50% alcohol, so you get up there to the 600 bottle number that way with a little bit of water out of one barrel. But this is a single cask. This is a single barrel offering, if you will. In particular, this is barrel HL 19718. If you happen to have a similar bottle in front of you and are curious, I suppose. And we're going to rate this out of 100, 25 for aroma, 25 for palate, 25 for finish, 10 for texture, and 15 for my personal experience. Of course, we know we like this Cragellachie distillate, that same kind of high sulfur distillate, but this is an independent bottle. And of course, Hunter Lang is an independent bottler of Scotch since the late 40s. And they purchase, new make spirit and age it in their own casks in their own warehouse. So it's not like they go buy a barrel. It's not like a barrel pick necessarily. They purchase new make and they control the wood policy on their own. And they are now the owners of the new Ardnahoe distillery. If you've heard of the new distillery Ardnahoe, that is a Hunter Lang distillery. So they have their own distillery now, because that's kind of what these independent bottlers have started doing. Is instead of, I suppose, building brands for other distilleries, they've decided it makes more sense they should probably own their own distillery, but they still got plenty of juice left. I think they're still bottling sourced juice as well, but it kind of just makes some amount of sense to do your own distillery, and many and most, I think, independent bottlers are doing their own distilleries now. So this particular company, the Ardnahoe, is their distillery. So again, 50% alcohol here, and this is all natural color, non-chill filtered. So that is a natural 14-year, 50% ABV sherry butt color. Let's give it a slight bit of rest there before we carry on. Sometimes I like to just give it a little bit of enough, you know. I don't talk about legs all the time, but it seems like there's some reasonable legs going on here. Many slow-moving, small individual legs. Many of them. All right. Immediately on the palate, on the aroma, I'm greeted with that sulfury component, as you would expect from a Cragellachie distillate. In this particular bottle, it kind of presents mostly as burnt matchstick for me, kind of sulfur. It's very much like freshly struck match or gunpowder. And the sherry element in here, despite it being, you know, exclusively sherry butt aged, it's not like super duper dried fruits or anything. It's kind of more like dry spices for me. Like dry cinnamon and dry nutmeg. Like maybe a bit of cocoa powder. There's a little bit of like a sweet maltiness to it. That I'm gonna like describe today as like somewhat graham crackery, but not quite. There's like a slight sweetness that feels like it's intermingled, but it's not like super duper sweet. And it's not like super duper like fruity or anything either. Like the most prominent notes for me are still like that struck match gunpowder, sulfur, and like just dry spices, almost like cinnamon and nutmeg on their own. With just like a slight sweet toasted note or a slight sweet malt note or like a slightly sweet graham cracker kind of thing. It's hard to find like a dried fruit, like a raisin or something like that. It's not really in the cards right now. All right, so Cragellachie, a 14-year-old old malt cask on the palate. Slanchiva. Oh. You do get a bit of that sherry character on the palate, like that kind of like dried fruit raisin date thing, but it's very dry. It's like slightly raisiny, slightly dried fruity, but it's like very close to like darker sherry notes, like dark spices and like maybe like leather, this kind of idea. And finish for me, like, again, dark spices, like deeper, darker spice notes, and like some amount of like chocolate, and maybe like really, really dark oak kind of notes. Kind of like the real dark, nutty end of the sherry like spectrum. That little bit of sweetness is kind of sparking a little bit, though. Maybe slight floral component. Like, man, what would you call it? Man, it's... I don't even want to give a flower, but... There is like a slight floral aspect to this, which I think is maybe a mix of sherry and sulfur. There is, again, that slightly sweet graham crackery kind of note in there. It's not like, again, it's not like honey, but it's sparking enough that it's making itself known. But I would almost call it like a secondary sweetness, like the sweet part of the graham cracker, or like a malty kind of sweetness, or something like that. Yeah, kind of like graham cracker. It's not as like clearly graham cracker as like you get out of like Shelter Point single malt, but it is like a really sweet and salty, dry kind of note. It's basically, it's like coming across very dry and not like lush and juicy. Very dry spices and dry, very dry fruit and very dry leather and oak. Taste this, he says, except 7TV doesn't work over on this jet. Great mouthfeel, though. There he is. Great mouthfeel. Again, that same kind of like, you get that sulfury note right at first. And you get maybe in a little bit of that kind of like graham crackery, sweet, malty note. And then you're into the darker spices and leather and oak and this idea. Yeah, it's definitely like a secondary. Well, man, there was a little hint of something there. It's like a secondary sweetness. What is that? There's like a note that I feel like is on the tip of my tongue to describe this kind of sweet element, and it's not coming to me. Kind of like honeycomb cereal. Yeah, like honeycomb cereal or graham cracker. Like we're kind of in this realm. Finish starts with some dark spiciness. You get a little bit of that sulfur. Then into like dark unsweetened chocolate. And then some like dark oaky components at the end. Finishes like medium plus. All right. So let's talk about the aroma out of 25. Again, you have that burnt matchstick, gunpowder sulfur character. You have that little bit of sweetness, zing, that like, again, honeycomb cereal, graham cracker. And then you also have like some very dry, kind of like cinnamon spice, nutmeg spice, kind of dry spices. Maybe a cocoa. And then like a little bit of a floral component, like I don't want to. It's hard to find a flower that fits. I'm not good at that anyway, but it kind of feels like a fresh bouquet of flowers a little bit. Kind of like that actually. Pretty nice on the nose. Nothing emergent and vastly aromatic, but a good combination of strong notes. 19. They are different notes, and that's kind of what makes them a little bit exciting, right? But what is encouraging about like a single barrel kind of bottle like this is they're not like the generic, oh, there's some orchard fruit, and I know this is Cragellachie, oh, there's some sulfur, orchard fruits, and, you know, a dried fruit thing. You know, it's not that. It's a little bit different, and that's a little bit interesting, a little bit encouraging that we're getting like flowers and a slight sweetness and like dried spices and this kind of idea. It's a different nose than what you imagine the Cragellachie sherry butt nose is going to be like. It's not like tropical fruits and sulfur and maybe a dried fruit component in the background. All right, so we'll talk about the palate at a 25. And you start off on the attack with some of that sulfur, some of that little bit sweet, zingy kind of honeycomb cereal or graham cracker. And then further in the back of the palate, you get more of that like dark dried spices or dark chocolate, leather, darker notes. Good transition to the sweetness could be more present for me, but it's present enough. The sulfur could be more present for me, but it's present enough. So you kind of have this sulfur sweet thing, and then that gets a distinct transition into like these darker, more deeper, bassy notes, all in the palate. So pretty good expression of flavor, pretty good transition of flavor, pretty good definition of flavor, but there's some strength that could be added to the treble, and the bass notes could be more distinct. But pretty good. I definitely like this one, this palette. We'll go with 18. All right, now the finish out of 25. That nose is kind of growing with me a little bit. It's like almost like full on honey now. Not bad. Again, you start the finish with some of that dark spices. You get some of that unsweetened chocolate. A little bit of sulfur is in there. And then you kind of end up in like barrel charred, darker barrel kind of notes at the end. Pretty good. Pretty reasonable. Not my favorite finish, but It's got a couple waves in there. 16. Although those like kind of dried fruit raisiny things that I think I got on the first sip like are completely gone now. It's almost like you got a little bit, like you're expecting to get some of that raisin, and you get it a little bit. It's like very dry, and then like by the second and third sip, you're like you can't get them anymore. It's like the way that I'm interpreting this whiskey is like it's so dry. It's like drier than dry. Like it's none of the fruits or flavors in here have moisture in them whatsoever. They're like turned to dust. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just interesting. It's an interesting side of it. All right, the texture out of 10, which again, this is a Cragellachie distillate. The texture is obviously going to be paramount and well done. Very nice, oily, smooth. 8 out of 10. All right. Now, out of 15, why would you pick up the old malt cask Cragellachie 14-year-old sherry butt single cask over some other whiskey? What's making this unique? And I think the uniqueness here is in the combination of a very unique distillate, Cragellachie, very unique distillate, in combination with a sherry butt maturation that kind of seems very dry, very dark, perhaps more in the nutty side of things. It's not like, oh, sherry bomb. Like I wouldn't even call this a sherry bomb whiskey, even though it is entirely matured in a sherry butt. It's not all on the raisins. It's not all on the dates and like dark toffee kind of world. It's like instead it's like on dry spices and leather, unsweetened chocolate, slight kind of like malty sweet notes, slight floral characteristics. So it's doing something very interesting. It has some challenging elements. Again, everything in here for me is like dry. It feels dry to me. And that might be a little bit challenging. Maybe you're missing some of those like nice, sweet kind of notes. Like sometimes you expect these heavily sherried whiskeys to come in eventually with that sweet, dark toffee, kind of syrupy, dark toffee element. I'm not getting that here at all. The bottle even says caramel on it, and I don't personally get that at all. There's also talk about apples, which I also don't get. But for me, everything here is like dry, and that unique kind of presentation of the sherry with the unique kind of presentation of the distillate being very sulfury, kind of like marries into a very unique bottle. It's not necessarily wowing me like with the flavors, because it's a challenging flavor profile, but it's a very unique flavor profile, and I think that's something to be that you might want to consider experiencing over like another sherried whiskey that's going to have the same kind of sherried attributes that you're kind of expecting. This kind of goes in a different direction. So because the profile here is just a little bit challenging, it's not so good that I would call it wild, but it is really good for me, because it's so interesting. So we're going with a 12 out of 15 in my personal experience. What an interesting whiskey. 19 and 18 and 16 and 8 and 12. I'll call it 73 to 100. Boom, boom. It's great. A great whiskey. Especially if you're looking for something different. And that's what you, again, that's why you come to single cask products. Get something a little different, a little interesting. Not something you've ever experienced before. And I think this does that. I think it does a great job of making that happen. So in that way,